Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling. I shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today. We're recording not at 11 PM, well, shock horror, the Animal Crossing episode. Mainly it's this big, well actually, I don't remember what happened on Monday, why I recorded so late. Oh no, I was busy that evening, that's why I recorded on Monday. And Tuesday I was busy that evening. Today I am busy on D&D, but I have time beforehand, so that's why I'm recording now. I have no idea what this session is going to be like, to be honest. As I say, these D&D sessions are becoming more and more open, so I'm just sort of like, I don't really know what's going to happen. Like, I'm giving you like flags and signposts that you can pick up and follow, but of course it's open enough that they can kind of do whatever they want as long as they, you know, have a reasonable expectation of it. So I'm just sort of just like, what, how are they going to react, what's this going to be? It's not so like written in the sand anymore, but anyway, written in concrete anymore. It's written in sand. Hello everyone, renowned Fawnhallow at 6:28 PM on Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. Yeah, so there's like, it's all like ambiguous. It's all just like, what's going to happen? I'm not exactly sure. Things might work out, things might not work out, things might be a bit iffy. Who knows? I don't mean that in like in a bad way or anything. It's absolutely in a great way, but it's also like I've got to think on my feet. I've got to be prepared. And for this group, it has a lot of like dream sequences kind of lined up where they have. Currently, they're private sequences. I think as the characters open up to each other, they're not going to be. The people are going to be more okay with having them not be private anymore. That's my assumption. But not like one of the characters already has like open dream sequences. I think the other character might soon have open dream sequences, and another might, you know, depending. But one of them has not really said much about their past, so I don't think they will have much of an open dream sequence yet. But eventually, at least, I say I hope it will happen. It doesn't have to happen. It's just then it becomes something which I can more easily sort of thread into the middle of a session rather than being like, okay, let's do it at the beginning or the end. This will happen like probably partway through the session, etc., etc. But yeah, so probably the session will start off with a dream sequence. Methinks. It might not. Like, I kind of wanted to, kind of not. I'm not sure. But yes. So it's an interesting. No, I didn't mean to pick it up. Thing trying to figure out what's going on. What am I going to talk about today? Great question. Haven't got the foggiest idea. To be honest. Excuse me. Open. What can we talk about? Which has been my mind. I installed the Notion app, I suppose, which I'm now using instead of a web browser. I kind of forgot there was an app, and I was going to install it after I used a web browser a bit for D&D planning to be like, oh yeah, let's get used to it. And now I've done it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I probably should have done this like ages ago. Certainly a lot. Is it more convenient? I don't know, necessarily. I don't think it's much different than using a web browser, except for now I have a separate window where it's specifically contained within it. But I do like it, and the only thing I've not tested actually, can I make multiple windows? It doesn't seem like I can, so it looks like I'm going to be using a combination of a web browser and the app. Because I often have multiple instances of things, well, unless I can, I don't know. What if I open Notion again? No, what if I move tab to new window? Oh, no, never mind, there you go, you can have separate windows. That's exactly what I wanted. Because now it's more built in, because I often have two windows open. One with where I take the notes, where I see the session notes, etc., etc., and one with like my database of like lore, my compendium. So I'm just like, in one thing I'd be like, oh, you know, they reference this place, I could be like, oh, I don't remember exactly that person's name, let's look it up in the compendium. Or if they do something silly, which I need to make a note of that for later, I could write it down in my notes at the same time. The next big upgrade I guess I can get is getting a proper DM screen, like with things which I actually need to know on a quick look up basis. Because I will say, like when I first made this DM screen, which I use currently, which is just like an online one, I would say like I put like a lot of information down, but I don't use most of it. The ones I do use are like the living expenses one and the status condition, like little nodes here and there. But anyway, we can talk about built-in apps. I picked a pumpkin. Apparently I picked this pumpkin at some point as well. So why don't we pick this one up and then actually water them so they can be full harvests. But yeah, like built-in apps versus like using a Windows web browser, you know? It's a common question. sort of, here and there of like which one is best, which one do you use. My honest answer is, I feel like most of the time I actually prefer using your app rather than the built-in web version. I'm trying to think of situations. Like, I'm trying to think Discord, definitely one of the earliest ones. Like, I remember our transition from Skype to Discord, like, as a friend group. It happened in secondary school. I think it happened around sixth form time, because we used to use Skype the entire time. And, like, I remember back in the day, like, I had, like, one of the better internets growing up. I had, one of the better computers as well, and I often, you know, was often on my computer, like, at the beginning as soon as I came home from school, and then, like, you know, maybe I'd leave it, maybe I wouldn't. So what we'd have to do in Skype, if you didn't know, there weren't like voice channels which you can join like in Discord, but you can, you had to call basically. You basically had to do a group call, and then whoever was a host would just be in the call the entire time. Anytime the host hung up, it would drop the call for everyone. So then, like, if you were like the person hosting the call, and then you just like started the call with everyone and be like, oh, sorry guys, have to go, and you hung up, they would all, someone in the group call would have to like call again to get the call going again. Oh, we have so many Lily of the Valleys up here. I didn't realise, which is honestly insane, but it's because Skype hosted things like, I think locally, right? Like, they didn't have like dedicated servers for these calls to go through. I'm not actually sure if that's how Discord works, but it would just be like you would be hosting it yourself, which is why Skype had so many, I think, vulnerabilities when it came to like IP tracking or whatever. You could like call someone, right? It's something like that. Like you could call someone, and then hackers could somehow find your IP through that because of the way it tried to connect. I don't know how true that is, by the way. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a web security expert or anything like that, so my knowledge is definitely probably very spotty, and honestly I might just be spreading misinformation, which is not really my goal, but that's kind of what happens when you, like me, talk just sort of off the top of your head randomly, with no idea of what you're saying is true or not, which is why I think at least having a disclaimer is probably a good idea. I don't know if that really would legally cover me, but I also don't think Skype is going to sue me from this, well, hopefully. But yeah, it was crazy. That's what you had to do, basically. Just someone would like, someone would message, like, even if I wasn't like around necessarily, or I wasn't wanting to be part of a call that day, someone would be like, hey, darling, could you like host the call or whatever? And I'd like host it, and I'd like mute indefinite, and they'd just like do whatever in the call. Didn't happen all the time. A lot of the time someone else would host it. But it was also like, if you wanted to call, you had to call literally everyone in the group. So we had a group of like 12 of us, I think, in that call or whatever, and it would call everyone every single time someone wanted to have a voice chat, and which was obviously very, very, wow, so many weeds. I can't believe I let this get so out of control, which is obviously very, very silly. But nowadays we have Discord, which is much more intrinsically logical, where it's a sort of like the equivalent of like chat rooms. You just like join the voice channel, and then it's not hosted anywhere. Like people can come and go as they please. You don't need someone hosting a voice channel. But it's amusing to think back that that's how it used to work on Skype, sorry, and that's used to be what we were comfortable with. I don't know if TeamSpeak was always like that, to be honest. I genuinely, like, we used TeamSpeak like once, and then we were like, this is really complicated trying to set up the server thing, so we're not going to do that. So we didn't do that. Just trying to make sure I put down this freshwater goby. That was a dace. In right place. It was like this. We'll go over here, then we move a sucker fish back up. I don't know why I have this fish the other way around. Oh, probably because it doesn't look good the other way around. That makes sense. Yeah. So what I was going to say is, I remember when we first transitioned over to Discord, it was like, I think it had an app, but all of us like mainly used the web browser, because it was like, oh, you can do like calls through the web browser or whatever. But even then, like after we used it a few times, I was like, I'm going to install the app. I'm not going to use web browser nonsense. But some of my friends like still use web browser for ages. And honestly, when I had 2 Discord accounts, that's when I would sometimes use a web browser for it. But even then, like, it wouldn't keep you logged in, so I didn't really use it all that often. It feels so crazy to use a web browser now, to use Discord. That like, sort of blows my mind almost. I'm like, you don't use a dedicated app? That's what everyone uses. But I mean, there was a similar thing like called eBuddy back in the day, which basically used to be a web browser sort of like messaging thing for MSN Messenger or Windows Live Media, as it later became renamed. MSN being a company which I think was acquired by Microsoft back in mid 2000s. I generally don't know. And they had like a messaging service which you tied to your Hotmail, Outlook, whatever it was called back then account. And that's basically the go-to messaging app for when I was in primary school. But that one, you couldn't do group calls on that one. Like, I don't know, I'm like, I was going to talk about like web browser apps as this web browser, but now I'm just talking about messaging apps. Oh my word, how many weeds did I like grow around here? But that was crazy. Like, that's what we used to use, MSN Messenger, Windows Live Messenger, but it'll always be MSN Messenger in my mind. You might be like, oh, you use like social media apps like quite early, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, like I was in the generation where like I was born late enough that social media basically had already sort of kind of happened by the time I hit like primary school age. Like, I remember Twitter being released when I was in primary school and signing up to it myself. Yes, I did have a Twitter when I was like 7 or something, and I started using it. I was probably a bit too young to use social media, but I was also, you know, a child who didn't really know what I was doing back then. Yeah, but we'd use MSN Messenger, and you could have, I feel like initially you couldn't have group chats in that. Like, I think it was only one-on-one chats, and then eventually they introduced it. I vaguely remember it. But like, I remember the calls you could have were, you could only have like one-on-one calls with people, and you couldn't have simultaneous calls, which was, of course, a little bit wild to think about now, because like these group calls, conference calls, or whatever you might want to call it, are sort of like the go-to that people want to use, right? To talk to friends, etc. It's a bit lame having to only talk to like one friend at a time. Oh my gosh, so many more weeds. Or maybe not, I don't know. Your mileage may vary, I suppose. But I remember a way we sort of went around it is like, I would go in a call with one person, and then what you could do is you could send voice messages to the other party. So then like we'd like have a group chat where we send like voice messages or something like that to each other. Something along those lines. I can barely remember. Also in like Windows Live Messenger, you could like nudge people, which would shake their screen basically to be like, hey, you awake? Sort of like atting them, I suppose. Which is wild to think, like, if that happened now, people would just like block you forever, I think. Rightfully so, don't nudge my screen. Gosh, there's so much random stuff in my inventory. I guess I've got to go to Tortimer Island to actually, it's been a while since we've been to Tortimer Island, right? I actually should go there to actually, put some stuff away. But yeah, we used to use that. I used to use Facebook Messenger a little bit as well. That was like in the sort of early, I'm trying to think, okay, what was the timeline? Oh, we should sell some fruits apparently. Like, MSN Messenger, definitely the first, like, well, to be fair, there was things like Habbo Hotel or whatever, which I would not really put on the same sort of level, because that wasn't messaging friends. And Club Penguin, like, I used to play, but I don't think you could message people in Club Penguin. Not without, like, a membership, maybe? I can't really remember. But Windows Live Messenger, MSN Messenger, was definitely the first, like, proper one used. I remember a lot of days being on there, just chatting away with friends. It was a completely weird and wild time. Using webcams to talk to people and their horrible quality, and I don't even know what we spoke about. Like, I remember my best friend at the time, he was very much not someone who would go on MSN Messenger. Like, he was not as online as he was a bit of a jock, if I would say. And he like I remember just like calling him at one point and just being like, I don't know, it was such a short call. It was almost like, you know, the same sort of call you would have with your like grandparents or something when you're like a teen. But like, hi, and you talk about like very mild things, and he just like did this random joke thing, and he was like, all right, sorry darling, gotta go, bye. And I was like, okay, bye. I just remember that in my mind because it was like such a rarity that he would ever even be online on that in the first place. He didn't know the cool online meta or whatevs. I also remember another time, I think I told this story before, but like I had like a spat with one of my friends, and I can't remember why she was angry at me, or maybe I was angry at her. I think she was angry at me, but I don't remember what I did or said. So I apologise. Don't remember what is going on with these flowers here. Oh, probably this rose should not be here. So I apologise, friend of the past, for whatever transgression I made, which made you angry at me. I mean, I apologise at the time as well. But I remember, like, I kept trying to talk to her, and then she would, like, there's a thing you could do where you could invite people, obviously, to make, like, group chats. But it was a thing where, like, I would keep trying to talk to her, and then she would keep, like, she wouldn't block me, but she would basically dodge the call. Because I can't remember, is it like when you closed the call, it would like end the conversation or something like that? What? Oh, it probably tried to make me pick up an item. It was something like that, and she basically kept adding like random other classmates to the call and then just leaving the conversation. It was like, I think about it again because it was so stupid, because I would just like open up a new conversation with her by messaging her as she was on my friends list or whatever. But it was like so dramatic for no reason, because I remember at the time just like I felt like I was constantly like chasing someone in a movie, being like, hey wait, I could explain. I don't remember what I was apologizing for or what even happened. I think it was because I didn't want to tell her like some weird secret thing and then she got upset about or something. I genuinely cannot remember. It was probably some trivial thing. We were like 9 or 10 or whatever. Being kids, working out our own emotions, being dramatic for no apparent reason. But I just remember it because she was like, I'm done talking with you, whatever, dear darling. And then she like added our friend Jane Doe to, well, I can't even say that now because that's like an actual Zone Zero character now. She like added our friend who, let's say, like Anne to the call, and then she would like remove herself from a conversation, so it would just like drop out. It's like that's a way to like stop. It's a way to like basically close a conversation with her on my end. And looking back, what a power move. That's so funny. Like thinking back to it, because it's so dramatic. And it's such a like a weird workaround that works in the first place. But then I would just like close that call, and then I would just like make a new one, be like, hey, no, let's talk with something. I'm sorry, I don't even remember. She just did it a few times, and eventually, like, I don't know, maybe she calmed down or something, and then we had a conversation. Genuinely, I wish I could tell you I remembered what on earth the conversation was about or why she was upset. If I was in the wrong, if she was in the wrong, doesn't really matter. We were like 9, who cares? But still. I was also cornered, I didn't even realise. I wasn't paying attention. What about I talk to Katarina? Oh no, we have like no time. Let's just head back. Because D&D will be starting in like 15 minutes or so. I still need to record a Talos Principle episode for Friday, because I'm going to be busy on Friday. But I'm not exactly sure how that's going to happen yet. But we'll see. Anyway. Yeah, what was I going to say? I don't even remember. But I've definitely told that story before, and it was so dramatic for no reason. Back in MSN Messenger, the meta that was going around is that we'd all have like such ridiculous over-the-top names, full of like all these symbols and emojis or whatever, and we'd all put like these quotes in our names. And each of us like decided to come up with our own individual catchphrase. And I think I told this story before. My catchphrase, like, you know, the same way like in Animal Crossing, they have like the catchphrases where we'd be like, whoa, yeah, what's up, Splish Splash, or what's up? And I'm trying to remember what Lily's is. I think it's Splash, but I don't remember. Or Splish maybe. And we basically had that, and mine, I just remember mine was like, one of my friends was like Snafu. I think mine was Phyllis, named after, yes, the pelican Phyllis from Animal Crossing. I can't remember any of my other friends' ones. And I remember the quote I had in my one was, why do people never stand out in the rain? They always miss a rainbow. Ooh, wow, so amazing, so edgy. And the font I used was like a teal green, Lucida handwriting. I don't know, it really is just kind of like pest chat quirks. I'm Homestuck, to be honest, which is so funny now I think back at it. You might be like, is that cringy? Yeah, I mean, like in a certain aspect, but you know, I was like, what, 10? Who cares? It's so funny to think back on how seriously we took it. We don't really have enough time to sell it, so I guess I'll round this episode off here. I don't really know what I was talking about. I was meant to be talking about like different social like chat functions or whatever, but I don't know. Discord's pretty great. What can I say? What else can I say except for yeah, Discord. Thumbs up. MSN Messenger, nostalgic. Others haven't used. Anyway, if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, share. It's greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.